It said something in Arabic, hello or welcome or something. And here it is, I'm doing section thing. And what we're doing is, there's a photograph here. There it is, this is the police chief. Me giving the police chief a lesson in sextants. How to sextant work. So it was quite an interesting thing. Everywhere we went, the Moroccans took a lot of interest in us being Americans. They were very interested in what we're doing. And they were very, very engaging, very friendly. And I gotta tell you, there was never a time when anyone had any suggestion of bribes or stuff like that. Hey, if I'm in Mexico, I get hit up like once every day, every 24 to 48 hours. I gotta grease somebody's palm in Mexico. Here, nothing like that at all. Nothing, zero. It's a kingdom. It's not really. It's kind of like the British guy described it as a benign police state. Okay, some more photographs. So here we have, the next trip out is Essaouira. Essaouira is totally different than Agadir. And we'll see the photographs here in a minute. Essaouira was founded by the Phoenicians in 7th century BC. It's an ancient, ancient city, fantastically interesting area. And let's see what's over here. Well, that is, by the way, that is an upper shot from Agadir before we left. So I got to change around some of the orders of these things, but this is Agadir. From the top of the hill. And that's the fishing area of Agadir. And we're still in Agadir. I'm not sure why that Essaouira thing is in there. Here we're coming into, this is Essaouira. Now notice, this is the Moroccan Coast Guard boat, and that's the only spot in Essaouira is packed, this tiny marina, packed full of fishing boats. The only spot available is to tie up on the Moroccan Coast Guard boat. Which they gave us permission to do, which is kind of ironical because I can tell you right now, the U.S. Coast Guard would not give you permission to tie up on one of their boats. Okay, that'd be out. Get out. Okay, so there we are, tied up along the Moroccan fishing. They were very, very nice about this. So we had to climb onto their boat to get ashore. You know, this is quite a place. There's driving coming ashore, and that's our boat right up to the Coast Guard boat. This is quite a place. They actually fix boats here, they build them, they're all the same style, you know, big fishing boats at different sizes, small ones, large ones. There's a ramp there they use to pull the boats up and down. Again, some of these boats are being built brand new. And that's the fishing, that's most of the fishing fleet right there, by the way. These small, tiny boats, you know, that they go out, you see the guys coming out with small motors and things. And here's Essaouira. Essaouira was really kind of a tiny, very tight walls. It's a walled city, ancient city, and they had every conceivable. They must have had 10, 15, internet cafes. They had shoe places, trinket places. This is a meat thing, I think it is. You know, hanging there. There's sneakers to the right. It was a cornucopia of many different kinds of market things of all sorts. And so. Fascinating place. What happened that night, by the way, we had dinner at a restaurant right next to where the boat was. Really tremendous restaurant, right high-end tourist type place, great place, Moroccan style. And that night I went out alone into Essaouira, which I generally don't do, but everyone's very tired. And I went in there, and there was this large section of Essaouira that had been turned into a place for a concert. They were all young people. And it was a mixture of kind of like electro-Arabic. It was kind of a weird thing. All kinds of colors, but it must have been probably 3,000 or 4,000 people there. And it was a big, big situation I had not seen during the day. It was only apparent at nighttime. But it was just such an eclectic group. But this was not set for the tourists. These are kind of locals. So the thing about this, some of these trips, when you're going by boat like this, unless you actually make a deliberate effort to get in a car or a cab and do a tour, you don't know really what's 3 or 4 miles away. You really don't. How far is that? Now in some cases we did, and we'll talk about it later on, we did take tours inland, we take a cabin, we check things out. But in most cases you don't have time. You're ready to go the next day. And in this case here, by the way, most of these stops are somewhere around 120 to 140 miles apart. What that means is you cannot leave in the morning and get there at night, before night. It has to be an overnight trip. So what happens is you have to time everything. You have to really be very careful because you don't want to get these places at nighttime because the lights are terrible. And it's very important to get to these smaller places in daylight, you know. Be different in Gibraltar or something, okay? But in terms of this place here, Morocco, believe me, the lights were not that dependent. Again, tremendous, there's all pottery, tremendous amount of different artifacts here. Incredible place. That's a big castle right there. They're full of castles over this place, pretty amazing. That's our camel right there. Some of the people did camel. Now there's a typical shop right there. This is where it's a pretty big place. It's a very well-known kind of a touristy type area. Very long hallway, long alleyway there with tons and tons of stuff and shops and things. There's Dorothy with shops in the background. That's looking up the harbor, by the way. And in a way, the rocks, etc. Obviously, this was originally like a defensive area here, and a very rugged coastline here. This is a very, very rugged place here. Gun placements, you know. When we came out, you can't really see our track coming in. But before that furthest island there, coming in. Look at all these cannons again. This is a defensive thing. And by the way, one of the things of most areas in Morocco is how many different places have been, how many different groups have been in charge of Morocco, so to speak, you know, in terms of imperialistic past. It's a fascinating history. And right before I left on this trip, our attorney friend Albert gave me a book. It was about some guys that were in about 1830s, 1840s. They went over to they went out of Gibraltar, and they went down the coast, and they landed in the Moroccan, not far from Agadir, and they crashed their boat, and 12 Connecticut Yankees. And the stories that happened, it was an amazing thing here. So it's not far from this area. So I'll talk a little more about that if I have any more time about that book. Again, small, pretty typical Arabic doorway here, kind of the Moor style. More alleyways like this. These ancient places are pretty interesting. That's the whole look of the waterfront there. Lots of people milling around. That's nighttime. Some artist out there is drawing with fishing boats. That's at dinner that night before I went out. I guess it's the next day, probably on the way to Mohammedia. So here we are. This is a chart here, a chart shot. And what happens is, the British gentleman in Agadir said, don't stop in Casablanca, it's all commercial. Go a little bit beyond it to Mohammedia as a small kind of yacht-friendly place, which we did. And so we took we went over to Mohammedia, and there will be a photograph here in a moment. Coming in here. Well, that's us fixing later on. We continually, by the way, we had our canopy fixed a number of times in this trip here, including in Esquera. We're putting it on right here. We're here on the way to Esquera. Different shots here. We're coming to Esquera. Beautiful sunsets, you know. Great cooks on board.
You're the cook.
Well, here we are. Now this is one of the this is I think the tallest mosque in the world. That's Casablanca right there. And we're going past Casablanca about 15-20 miles to go to Mohammedia. And enormous place. It's 600 feet tall, by the way, this place. 600 feet tall. And that's a close look later on. And we're jumping around here, but this is coming to Mohammedia. Combination of modern boats, old fishing boats, etc. Those are the guys in the dock as we come in, and we're meeting this guy here later on. Anyway, if you go coming in North Africa into Mohammedia near Casablanca, you have to take a cab to Rick's Cafe. So, somewhere around here, I think we have the Casablanca movie poster. I think someplace, right? Where is that thing? Is it there? Anyway, so later on we'll see about our trip into Rick's Cafe, which is quite a highlight of this thing. That's a boat tied up in Mohammedia. We are walking around near Mohammedia. This is walking around Casablanca. We're actually in Casablanca. A lot of government buildings, a lot of different